All right, fam, this video is announcing our nutritional support for our programming that we're moving into for the summer months. People's minds are on their body composition, right? Summer's coming, people take clothes off, and they want to feel secure in their own skin. And so while the programming is shifting to help people build muscle mass and encourage fat loss, it is negligent for us to just assume that the programming alone will do the trick. It is just one piece of the overall recipe for success. And so, of course, we're providing nutritional support for those interested in learning and taking that advice. And it'll be in the form of generalized advice initially. So what applies to the general population with this goal may not equally apply to the individuals. And so in the event individuals want specific individualized help, then myself and Jamie Brooke from Jamie Brooke Wellness are offering our support for that individualized advice, assuming you would like to invest that time and money to do so. So the generalized advice comes as just being part of a member of our community. And so what I'd like you guys to consider is that the way we find that people best change their body composition is through addressing not only the caloric intake of what they're consuming, but also the nutrient density of what they're consuming. People generally don't have trouble losing weight. We've all done it. It's not that hard to lose weight for almost anybody. The real difficulty for most people is staying where they wanted to be or avoiding the yo-yo effect of going up and down throughout, years and decades. So ultimately, really the problems that most people face is not how do I drop body fat, but how do I permanently drop body fat and live a life that I enjoy in the process. And that's different for different people, but of course there are generalized pieces of advice to give. I would like to refer you to an experiment that many of us would consider unethical at this point in history, but nonetheless it exists and it did occur. And it's called the Minnesota starvation experiment. And it was during World War II. There was a group of men who were conscientious objectors. They did not want to go to war. And so the government basically said, okay, instead of you going off, we're going to ask that you volunteer for this starvation experiment. And it lasted about 6 months. 3 months was starvation, and then 3 months was essentially refeeding. And what they wanted to discover was what occurs when people are faced with prolonged starvation. How does that change things physically or physiologically for them and psychologically? And then furthermore, when we reintroduce more food options, how does that affect people both physiologically and psychologically? So Google that experiment. It is quite fascinating. One of the things I like to sort of draw attention to is that the actual starvation caloric numbers were around 1,500 calories a day. And I know a lot of people who consume much less than 1,500 calories a day, and they've plateaued. They're not losing body fat. They're not making progress in their fitness. They're having trouble sleeping. Their mood is low. Their relationships are suffering, low libido. Look back at the Minnesota starvation experiment, and those people, against their will, technically, were being fed about 1,500 calories and facing all those same things. It is an interesting thing that no one is forcing the general population right now to consume less than 1,500 calories, but there are a lot of people who are doing that, many even under 1,000 calories a day, and confused as to why their experience is tough, and confused why their progress of losing body fat has stalled. So there's more to this equation than calories. All right, so go learn a bit about that. The way I think about these things is that yes, you must drop caloric intake some. Whatever you're expending each day, you must somehow burn more. But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to come from starving yourself as your only option. Organ systems need nutrients, raw materials. And so if we're starving ourselves not only of energy, which are calories, but also nutrients, so the density of the vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients in those calories being low, it's as if we're being starved even more. So our organ systems, our cells need raw materials to thrive. And so if we can begin the process of slowly having better food selections to promote foods that make us feel great and help provide those raw materials for our biochemistry to be optimal, then we'll be far more successful in our goals of losing body fat and building muscle mass. It's important to remember, in fact, that the fat that we hold in our body is not just an energy surplus, but it's also a protective mechanism from toxins that are coming into our body. We're constantly inundated with things that our body's trying to get out of us. It's in the air, it's in the soil, it's in the food, it's in the water. We can't escape it, but that's part of our physiology is we have systems that move that stuff out of us through sweat and breathing and peeing and pooping and all those things. And so the more fat a person has, what may be also occurring in addition to energy surplus is simply the body trying to trap those bad things in a fat cell so that it can process it later. So technically in those people, the bad stuff is not going out of our bodies as fast as it's coming in. And it's important to understand that because, I mean, it makes sense, right? If a fat molecule does not mix with water and we're mostly water, one of the most, the effective ways to protect us from the toxin, a lot of people hate that word, but let's just use it anyway. The toxin that's in our body that we currently can't process, we trap it inside that fat cell where it can't get to the rest of the water in the body. And our system waits for some period of time before it will try and process it out of the body through whatever detoxification method it so chooses. And so that means that the quality of food that's coming into us and the quality of water and air and all those things can affect the rate at which bad things come in and therefore the rate of which bad things go out. So stay tuned for more information on our nutritional support. We'll be regularly posting things on the Top Tier Lounge. We'll be regularly making blog posts. We'll be regularly making videos. Both Jamie and myself will provide a lot of that for you guys. Again, if you want the individual support, then reach out to myself or Jamie, and we'll figure out what options we have to give you that. But definitely take advantage of the free generalized advice that we're providing.